Hello everyone, welcome back to another story from the realm of the dice. Today we're going to look at a story with a player that has some major main character syndrome issues. Let's look at the post. This was from a few years ago. My real life group was on hiatus and I'd been looking for a new group for a while to play a setting I'd come up with. I ended up advertising on looking for group for some players. I'd cut the responses down, talk to people to get an impression of them, and answer any questions they had, and finally had 5 players in mind for the group. They all seemed decent, like they'd get along and could both explore and add to the lore of the setting. I sent out the invites. 4 of the players I'd messaged replied within an hour. The 5th arrived after about a day and was, let's say, interesting. The player, I'll call her Lois, not her real name, sent a list of requirements before she joined the campaign. Lois's character had a custom background. The background was fairly balanced mechanically, but its starting gear included 2,500 gold pieces in cash, a not-so-small mansion with servants, which she didn't have to pay, a monthly income, and about 500 gold pieces in actual gear. P.S. We were starting at level 2. Already that sounds like a crazy amount of, I don't actually want to play the game, but I do want to skip ahead and get all of the glory immediately. Number 2. Her character also started with a family heirloom sword, because of her character backstory. It was basically a reskinned flame tongue that got more powerful as she leveled. While I'm not against having special items as part of your backstory, it also needs to be much more grounded in reality of what a low-level character in this case would actually have. And sure, you could have a plot important device in your inventory that you could then bring up later, but at least then you would have to talk to the DM about it to make sure that everyone's expectations actually match the setting and the game that the DM is trying to set up. Number 3. First pick of any treasure the party found. I would also add a few custom treasures for her character. Number 4. Lewis's character backstory, basically Romeo and Juliet with the names filed off and the ending unresolved, became setting canon and Lewis could modify it as she wanted. Okay, it's pretty clear that this person is not really set on playing, she just wants a captive audience for her story. Number 5. Lois wanted some one-on-one GM time each session to cover her character's story, plot, development, etc. And during her session, not afterwards. Number 6. She wanted at least every third session to focus on her character's backstory, minimum 2 hours per session. Number 7. Lois wanted the right to kick players if they were sexist or homophobic to her. I definitely get the last point about not keeping players at the table that are being homophobic or sexist, transphobic, or anything else. That's just not acceptable at the table. But to ask for this demand like this, something seems off about that last one. Like all of the other demands that are mostly unreasonable, actually entirely unreasonable for a game where everyone has to collaborate and play together, that last one seems oddly specific. The DM should always make sure that every player is comfortable around the table, so it seems kind of out of nowhere to ask for that last one. If I accepted her offer, she would be willing to allow her character to join my campaign. I thought this might be a joke of some sort, so I did check, but no. Lois expected me to agree to pretty much all this. She was willing to negotiate a little on the starting gear, but only a little, as it was entirely appropriate for her character to start with a ton of cash. As to the other points, Lois said I was the unreasonable one for trying to change them. I've known problem players before and wanted no part in what was clearly main character syndrome, so I dropped her from the Discord straight away and sent an invite to one of the people on the reserve list. It didn't take long for me to start getting some very upset messages from Lois calling me sexist. Apparently DMs kept inviting her to join a group, then dropping her after all the hard work she'd put into the character, and sexism was the only possible reason. I think overall I was lucky to avoid this one. P.S. Point 7 was something she'd mentioned during the interview/Q&A session we'd had. She had mentioned having some trouble with a live group. We'd agreed that if there were any problems she'd discuss it with me in private, and she never even mentioned wanting to kick other players herself. And that's the end of the post. Clearly this DM saw through what this player was actually suffering from, being main character syndrome, and dealt with it accordingly by just not agreeing to the terms. never negotiate with terrorist people. That's it for today. Hope you liked the video. If you did, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.